Hey all, here are OS Reviews. Today we're taking just a quick look at 3 smart Japanese mechanical pencils. It's kind of a weird or unconventional video for our channel, but because the design and engineering for these pencils are quite unique, I was compelled to just take a closer look. Now, a couple of months back, we actually did check out another stationary product. It was in the form of this quote-unquote eternal or forever pencil that uses this interesting kind of metal-like tip, which when combined with enough friction actually rubs onto a piece of paper and results in a line similar to that of a regular pencil. It was a bit of a viral product, and the claim here is that these type of pencils are going to be more water resistant, the lead can't physically break off, and they should last for longer durations as well compared to conventional writing pencils. I enjoyed that, so again, taking a look now at these 3 mechanical pencils. The first one is the Kuru Toga Advance, and this is actually manufactured by Mitsubishi, a company that is more well known for making engines and cars, and as a result they've actually designed an interesting kind of quote-unquote engine to this mechanical pencil, which will rotate the lead as you're writing. And the claim is that by rotating the lead physically, you'll end up with always a fine point that will never become dull. For example, compared to a regular pencil, as you continue writing, it becomes perhaps a little bit more inconsistent and uneven versus with the Kuru Toga Advance. The Advance series, by the way, is a little bit higher end compared to the regular Kuru Toga because it rotates the lead 2 times as quickly, so a full 360 rotation will require fewer lifts and presses. Additionally, it features a lead protection mechanism through a sleeve that will extend if you're pressing too hard to prevent the lead from breaking as well. Now, the second one here is called the Zebra DelGuard. This one is also advertised as being a quote-unquote unbreakable mechanical pencil. It uses a spring-assisted mechanism to also protect the lead and prevent it from breaking regardless of how hard you're pressing down. A pretty clever, again, in a way, over-engineered system for something as simple as a pencil, but just really cool as a piece of stationary tech. And last but not least, we also have the Tombow Monograph Neon Color mechanical pencil. The claim to fame of this model is that you can shake it to extend the lead instead of having to press all the way onto the top to click to extend the lead. So it should make it a little easier and faster as you're writing just by using that gesture and shaking mechanism instead to, again, make that move forward. And by the way, all 3 of these mechanical pencils are manufactured and made in Japan, and they sell for about $5 to $6 a pop when shopping on Amazon. You can find some links down below. So they're going to be a little bit more pricey, of course, compared to a generic mechanical pencil, but for the tech that they have inside, it's actually not as bad as I suspected. I'll also mention that the Monograph also has the most customization when it comes to a lot of different colors that you can pick. So we have the white edition for the Monograph Neon, but as the name kind of implies, you can also find it in shades including pink, some models which are going to be completely translucent or transparent, other ones which are more classic including black, green, so on and so forth. And all 3 variants here are using 0.5mm lead, which is relatively standard. Starting with the Kuru Toga here, packaging is also kind of interesting because there's a tiny little almost dimple on the side that is acting as a form of theft protection, where if you're actually in a store and try to remove it, you won't be able to pull it out of the slot just by using that small little cutout with paper. And actually the Tombow does a similar thing on the edge here as well. And as for the actual pencil itself, it has a pretty decent weight to it. The clip is constructed out of aluminum alloy, and there's also a shield for the eraser nib at the back here that can be replaced, which is also metallic. And then otherwise the grip section is semi-transparent. You can see a small symbol of it rotating. The bottom here continues with a slightly more metallic accent, although the main barrel section is constructed out of a polycarbonate plastic, but doesn't feel cheap or hollow. And we can also see the protective sleeve here at play, where if we are pressing down too hard onto the piece of paper here, the entire thing will retract backwards, as you can tell there, to prevent the lead from breaking. And here's a close-up of the rotating here happening in real time. Again, every time that we lift and continue to write a new stroke, you can tell that the cylinder on the inside there is moving and shifting position. Quite cool, and it keeps all the lines here very consistent, meaning that the lead here will always remain sharp, pretty much as advertised. Now, that being said, when it comes to the overall efficacy and whether or not this type of design makes sense, I have to say it kind of varies based on the language that you are writing in. For example, if you're writing in Japanese, Chinese, Korean, characters which require more strokes, you often will end up with more of that habit of having to lift the pen up and down as you're writing, compared to languages including English as well as Spanish, which can sometimes just be handled with even writing in cursive. You don't necessarily have to lift the pen up quite as much when you're writing just the alphabetical letters. And as a result, the benefit or efficacy may not be quite as noticeable as if you're writing in a language that requires more strokes to complete different words. Nonetheless, if you're doing a little bit more of doodling work as well as maybe math work, which requires, again, a more fine lines to be driven, then those could be some advantages of a design like this, which is, again, very high-tech and at the end of the day, definitely functional in keeping the point still very fine and pristine, always sharp as you're writing down very consistently. And as a mechanical pencil, it does feel quite smooth. You don't have to apply too much force to get a relatively easy to read line as well. So the next one here will be the Zebra DelGuard, and I will say that this particular model, at least in the blue variant, does have a little bit more fine detail work on the body, including a gradient finish and this kind of hexagon, almost web-like pattern that is just revealed when you're pointing at the correct angle of lighting. That makes it look actually quite cool and unique. Similarly, the mechanism here is partially visible to the eye. You can kind of make out some of the springs in this translucent shell as you're holding onto it, but just like on the Kuru Toga Advance, there isn't really a soft touch texture that is making it even more cushy or grippy, but again, the benefit is having this transparent inside that looks very high-tech as a result. Now, similarly, there's a sleeve here for the eraser that is made out of metal. You can also pull this out, of course, to pop in more 0.5mm lead when it runs out. The clip on this model, though, is constructed out of polycarbonate plastic. Overall, though, it has a pretty decent weight that is very similar to the Kuru Toga, although maybe just a slight pinch lighter and also slightly shorter here as well, but still feels quite ergonomic. And otherwise, again, just pressing down on it, we can start to see the lead come out from the bottom there. In fact, zooming in here, we can see that mechanism a little bit more closely. It's just because of the spring here that is moving the entire lead into place if you are applying too much pressure, and really, quote-unquote, makes the lead here unbreakable regardless of how much force you're pressing down on it, which is usually a pain point on mechanical pencils because the lead is much thinner than on a regular pencil. They just break super easily and you end up having to use up a lot of lead. It can be kind of frustrating if you're just writing more quickly or hardly on a piece of paper, but that kind of is solved and mitigated by the Zebra DelGuard here. And for things like simple writing, you can tell that it still is quite easy to use, feels smooth, and the lines here are easy to draw. Last but not least, here is the Tombow Monograph, which from a design or aesthetic perspective actually might be one of my favorites, especially in the super clean black and white shade. I think it looks just very understated and minimalistic. It also has a decent weight to it despite being made entirely out of polycarbonate, including the clip-on here, which is also translucent, and it also has, again, the internals here, including the mechanism for the spring, which is revealed, making it just look even more high-tech. We have a little bit of accents going on here, and the very tip here for the eraser, interestingly on this one, is rotatable, so you can actually push it outwards. There's a little bit more eraser on this one compared to the other models, which have more of a limited capacity on the end. So if you're constantly erasing things, then this might be actually one of the advantages of this model, although it doesn't have a kind of a lead protection or anti-break mechanism in place. The very bottom here, including the tip, though, is constructed out of aluminum and does feel quite reassuring and cold to the touch, although again there is no soft touch grip, just like on those other models. When on the on position, the shaker mechanism will be fully accessible, so you can use that motion there to basically extend the lead just by shaking the entire pencil, and it comes out there from the end, as you can tell. Actually works quite well. Alternatively, you can also use the tip here to press down and retract the lead manually as well, as you can tell there. Alternatively, if you press all the way down and also insert the latch here into this slot, it will lock the shaker mechanism, so that if you're putting it into your backpack, for example, movement is not going to make the lead automatically retract. So you can turn this mechanism on or off just by using that lock switch built into the clip. The overall writing experience on this one is also quite good. As you are just jotting, lines flow quite freely, and it holds the lead into place quite easily as well. Overall, though, the shaker mechanism, I have to say, is really satisfying to use. It almost is kind of like a fidget pen or a fidget spinner in that same sense. It makes it also quite fun, aside from just being able to write using it, and of course having just a larger eraser component as well. So that is more or less it as far as our quick hands-on review, basically, of 3 of the most high-tech mechanical pencils that are available that you can find even on Amazon. Again, they're not too expensive, but if you want to up your writing game, also kind of serving as a conversation starter as 3 of the best mechanical pencils out there, then you can consider these options. I kind of wish that there might be one model that consolidates all these features into one. That might be the ultimate mechanical pencil. But as they are, they all have slightly different selling points and various features of engineering, whether it comes to a shaker mechanism, a really strong anti-lead braking mechanism, or just using a rotating mechanism there for spinning and keeping it always sharp. Auto sharpening, essentially. Those are 3 selling points that you'll find on these mechanical pencils. So you can learn more details if interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. Again, 3 very high-tech pencils from Japan. That has been the Tombow Monograph, the Zebra DelGuard, as well as the Kuru Toga Advance.